What disturbing thing did you learn about someone only after their death? I received a phone call from my late husband's girlfriend the day of his funeral. She was phoning his cell phone, which I had turned off while he was in the hospital. She told me that my husband had been paying her rent for the last year. The bank had recently foreclosed on our house. I had no idea he was unfaithful to me, but she knew all about me. Jesus Christ. Hope you're on the mend. That's awful. It has taken me 7 years, but I have just started dating again. Thank you. Something similar happened to my mom. My dad had this mistress for whom he paid all the bills, including even her college bills. She was probably like 30 or 35, and he was 44 when he died. The college thing really hurt my mom, as she always wanted to go herself, but there was never money. Anyways, the woman had the nerve to show at his funeral. She didn't stay, but went by the casket to say goodbye. Really shitty. My mom found out about their relationship before his passing, but he had tried to make amends. Told her he and the woman were done for etc, and my mom stayed BC of her 3 kids. My dad would often threaten to kill me and my siblings, my mom and then himself if she left. We caught him cheating long before that as well. Lots of stories. My mom went through hell with that mofo. I don't really miss him at all, and I'm glad I didn't get to grow into an adult having him in my life, although given all his shit I matured a lot earlier than kids do. I was 11 when he died. Anyway, my mom endured a lot BC of him. I do not know how I could possibly go through what she did. She's a true hero. Apparently this story is not uncommon. Brother-in-law's best friend rang him distraught after going through his recently deceased, much older sister's papers. He had discovered that she wasn't his sister as he had thought for the last 70 years. She was his mother. Usual story, teenage pregnancy, went to a convent to have the baby, gave it to mum to bring up. He apparently had a good relationship with her, and he was upset because she couldn't tell him the truth. I once had a friend whose dad died, and he never really talked about it, but he was pretty troubled. Every year on his death date, they would have a celebration of life party. He invited our friend group one year and we were all excited to be there to support him. Turns out his dad died in a car accident involving a drunk driver. The dad was the drunk driver and also killed the family he hit. Jesus. How did you guys react? I once went to a joint funeral of a guy who killed his wife, shot her lover, he lived, and turned the gun on himself. Super awkward. Well, we kinda brought it up to him to see how he really felt about everything, and he defended his dad. I understand that's a hard situation, because you lost your dad, but your dad also killed a whole family. I'm not friends with him anymore. For a different reason, but that helped in my decision to break our friendship. He was very troubled. That weekend we were with him for the celebration. He ended up sexually assaulting my best friend, but no one but me and her know about it. Obviously she isn't friends with him either. After my grandfather's death we were cleaning out his old house, and I'd found an envelope with paperwork that basically said my dad had died by suicide. I had been told as a kid that it was a heart attack. It was a shitty way to find out the truth. That's dark. I'm sorry. It is dark, but also highlights how much your family wanted to protect your feelings for as long as possible. Not saying that's right, but it's definitely human. Those things usually start with they are too young to know, or we don't want to add to their grief right now, and wind up I will at the right time, which never comes. Good intentions that wind up not helping overall. My buddy's mom totally killed my buddy's dad. She had taken a $200k life insurance policy out on him 6 months before he died, and he died from not taking his medication that he'd taken no problem all of his life. My buddy was away for the weekend so wasn't home when his dad died. After his mom died, we found out she'd taken a life insurance policy out on my buddy at some point too, and she'd also forged his signature to sign over $100k my buddy's dad had left to him. She also faked illnesses to get prescription drugs and had little books filled with info on what she'd sold and how much she'd made from selling them. After his mom died, we found out she'd taken a life insurance policy out on my buddy at some point too. Man, makes you wonder if and what she had in store for him. Yup lol. She robbed my buddy blind, and he had no clue. She took his inheritance from his grandma too, that he'd had no clue about, and gave a big chunk of it to her friends / his godparents who used it to buy a beach house. My Bill died in an accident, and his wife found out, by going through his phone, that he was sleeping with several other women. Many of whom were pretty close in our friend group and some were also married. It was quite awkward, and got pretty messy. That's exactly what happened to me. I lost my wife to a drunk driver, and then I found out she had been cheating on me all through our marriage. Edit. Shit, this exploded. I'm not happy that she's dead. Despite what she did to me, no one deserves this. Nobody. Yes, I destroyed and trashed all her stuff, but that's because I flew into a fit of rage after discovering just what she'd been doing to me. Not really disturbing, but I found a restraining order against my mom banning her from entering our local grocery store. I will never know that story. That sounds like a story I want to know. I have a funny grocery store banning story you can hear. When a buddy of mine was in high school, they started putting self-checkout machines at the Stop and Shop. He discovered that he could just walk in, grab 230 racks of beers, and walk out the self-checkout and no one would ever notice. He became the beer hookup for his underage friends, and would do his foolproof plan every weekend. Then one weekend at a party in the next town over with a bunch of groups of kids from the next town school, from across the yard another kid he'd never met before goes, "Oh my god, it's you." The kid worked at Stop and Shop, and in the back room of the Stop and Shops, even in the surrounding towns he had not visited, there were posters of him essentially branding him Stop and Shop enemy number one. The kid said, "Dude, people are looking for you." Like a lot of people, he stopped going to Stop and Shop ever again, and had to make up excuses or drive far away to a different chain of store in a different town if his mom asked him to get something. My uncle had a son he never told us about for 25 years. My grandpa had a son he never told us about too, and my grandma's current fear is that one day he'll come looking for my grandpa and she'll have to tell him that he died over 10 years ago. This just happened with my father. Did a gene test and was contacted by a sister I didn't know I had on my dad's side. She had been looking her whole life. Her mom gave her a list of possible names, but my dad went by a nickname. Had to let her know he passed a decade ago. Was tough. One of my best friends died suddenly and clearly didn't have a chance to clean up his affairs beforehand. He had little family, so the group of friends handled everything. We found in his house. Not just a few pieces or somehow accidental. It was in a file cabinet with folders and sorted by ages, sex, etc. Changed everything. That's simply not acceptable. Edit. Not acceptable sounds like an understatement, but it was actually the other way. It was just nope. No excuses, no trying to understand, no worries about his family or their reputations or his or anything, no anything. It was instantly done and over, and he was labeled with the scarlet letter. We called the police in a matter of seconds. I literally puked that night over it. Wow, that must have hurt to see. It made morning end instantly. My grandpa had stashed what would be worth millions today and proceeded to convince his family they were poor and had almost no money. His family lived in poverty while he lied to them all. My dad did something somewhat similar. He had sole control over all family finances. We definitely didn't live in poverty by any means, but he stressed my mom out about bills and sudden expenses and stuff all the time by claiming we were tight on money or running out of money or he wasn't making as much at the moment or ECT. He's go as far as claiming we could lose the house, lose the cars, he might lose his job soon, we might not be able to pay the water/electric/phone bill. Oh no. Yeah, he had a shitton of money secretly stashed away in a separate bank account and was living lavishly on his business trips. There was never any danger to our house/possessions/way of life. He said those things and started those arguments for the sick pleasure of causing my mom pain/stress and feeling powerful, and maybe for the thrill of having a secret. Who knows for sure, I guess. Edit for addition, since I'm seeing a lot of questions. My mom is dead now, but my dad isn't. I found out all this stuff by digging through his stuff during their divorce. My mom didn't tell me any of this and didn't want me to look through his stuff. I found it all on my own. And my mom wasn't a stay-at-home mom either. She worked her ass off to give him money to help provide for us while he was playing WoW all day and getting rich siphoning money off his best friend's company. Your dad's a cunt. I had a brother who had some paranoid delusions. FBI, CIA following him, spying on his apartment, etc. We, my brothers and I, had tried to get him help, and he would just have no part of it. After a few years, it seemed like it had gotten better. He stopped bringing it up, and we felt like it must have just passed. After he died, we found his journal, and it was just horrifying. Right up until the night he died, he detailed all of the torture that they were inflicting on him. Weird shit that I can't even write in here. It was just incredibly disturbing to read what a tortured life he was living inside his mind, while acting relatively normal outside. Edit. Many people have asked me to go into more detail on what he wrote. I can't go into much detail. It's hard for me to write about. Briefly, he believed that they were using some type of focused energy beam to torture him. They focused on different parts of his body at different times. Every noise that an appliance made was proof of electronic surveillance. Every bump on the wall or person walking in an adjacent apartment was a message from either the bad FBI agents or the good FBI agents. This one has upset me the most. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He didn't hurt anyone, but he was hurting so much inside. It would be so hard to read. I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother.